and coincidentally, it took 3.5 seconds. So I can start letting people in and kind of build that
Yeah,
build it up. I'll ping Justin just to ping me when he comes in too.
great. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is good to see some familiar faces. We are going to get started in about 2 minutes with the programming. Um, in the meantime, just as a reminder, most of you are on mute, but you can communicate with me as well as our expert using the chat throughout the call tonight. You can ask questions throughout, and I'll try to weave them into the presentation. But just as practice, let's just drop who we are, if you're running for office, what you're running for, and where you're calling from. And I, of course, am your host. I'm Rob, and I am in Windham, Maine, where it was sunny and breezy and about 58 degrees today. I was feeling good. We'll get started really, really shortly. Good to see smiling faces. We got Wisconsin. Josh is our expert today. I'll introduce him in a minute. Ventura, California. Awesome. Got some more people in the waiting room filing in. So this is my favorite part of any of these calls, the like killing time while everybody gets logged in moment. I wish I knew like a magic trick for you guys or something to keep you entertained in the meanwhile. But I see Indiana. Oh, Bob Klein in Falmouth, Maine. I just moved here. I bought this place this month and was living in Cumberland. So it was right on the Cumberland Falmouth town line and Middle Road. So good to see you.
I was going to say a good magic trick would be to have a fact or statistic about every city that somebody says they're from. That would be
And
impressive.
everybody says, you know what? I've done enough traveling in my
Yeah,
career and
Dave.
work. People joke sometimes that I'm local everywhere,
Yeah.
because I do probably know at least the best bar to shoot pool in, or the best place to have corned beef hash
I've lived in about
for
a dozen
breakfast.
cities all over the country. So yeah, I definitely hear that. I've lived all over. So
Awesome. Well, it's 6:01, and while we are still admitting some people, I am going to go ahead and get started. This is Digital Campaigning Essentials. We are going to walk through everything that you need to know to have a solid foundation on social media strategies, email campaigns, and digital advertising basics. And the goal is for you to be able to leave here not just knowing that information, but also how goodparty.org's tools can help you to develop a really structured approach to each of those buckets and to implement the best practices that our expert is going to put in front of you, as well as to just run a really smart digital playbook. So, without further ado, I'll introduce our expert. His name is Josh Clemens. He has an organization called Reverbal Communications. I'm going to let him introduce himself and explain a little bit about his background. But I'll say that Josh has a ton of free content out there online. So if you don't get your fill of him here tonight, he's just so cool about putting out a lot of information on these topics and being very generous with free expertise. So Josh, I'll throw to you, but I encourage everyone. I know he just dropped in the chat here his website, joshclemens.com/content. There is a ton, like, this is such a big issue and one that we get a lot of questions on. We're going to cover a lot, but there is so much to learn on digital. So, Josh, without further ado, tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Josh Clemens. I am a digital storyteller and strategist. I help campaigns, organizations, and brands win the internet. I have worked on directly, I've worked on in different capacities well over 100 political campaigns over the last 10 or so years. Everything from digital director on a statewide race down to ads manager, consultant, trainer on city council, school board, all, you name it. I've worked a race in that capacity. About half the races I've worked have been here in Wisconsin, where I live, but the other half have been all over the country. So I've really gotten to work with folks like all over. And then I also do a lot of work outside politics as well. I work with non-political campaigns as well, helping them also win the internet. That link is it's not my website is joshclemens.com, but /content will take you right to all of the content that I put out into the world. I am obsessed with content. I have 2 podcasts. I have a newsletter called Free Digital Tools, where every 2 weeks I send out 2 free digital tools, and that's it. I've got like guides you can download for free, and I've got a digital toolkits for campaigns that just like lists free tools if you're looking to like figure out, how do I build a website? How do I do this? How do I do that? I threw that together. It's not gated, like literally all this stuff you can just go check out. So happy to talk more about any of that, but I don't know. That seems like a lot. So
Yeah, awesome. I think all of you can see why I was excited to talk to Josh. And I want to start with a couple of kind of big, broad opening questions. Starting with Josh, how has digital campaigning evolved in the recent years? And what are the types of trends that some of our candidates, these independent candidates, should be aware of as they enter campaigning in 2025?
For better or for worse, everything is harder today than it was a year ago. And everything's going to be harder a year from now than it is today. So like, just understand that anything you read, anything you hear about that was talking about this and that 2 years ago is just not the world that we live in anymore. And it's really important to understand how much harder the world is for campaigns and everybody else trying to navigate the internet. The internet is noisier, it's louder, there's more going on. Truth means less today than it did a year ago. I mean, quite literally, it's hard to know what's real. It's hard to know. You read an article, but you saw a tweet, and which is real and who the hell knows? And, you know, Twitter's full of unverified folks, you know, spreading misinformation, and you don't know what's real anymore. The good news is, you have the same job, and that is to connect with your audience and ignore the noise. The bad news is it's harder to do it today than a year ago, without question. So like, biggest trend line, just you should go into it with the full knowledge that the internet is just as important today as it was 2 years ago, but it's harder.
Yeah, yeah. The entire nature of what you can believe online has just changed so much. But that's not to say that digital organizing can't be incredibly impactful, especially for state and local candidates. And I kind of wanted to ask you, what do you think the overall impact of digital can be for candidates like this? How important is it to have sort of a digital toolkit?
It's so important to be online. Like I said, like, yes, it's harder and it's just as important. So I work a ton of races. For some campaigns, I'm doing full digital agency work. And for others, I'm just running ads or just being a consultant. But the amount of candidates I have who win are the, like, you, being good at the internet doesn't guarantee you'll win. Not being good at the internet guarantees you're going to have a hard time. In the smallest of races to the largest of races, I saw somebody here is like running for governor. You know, like whatever level you're at, you need to be on the internet and you need to find a way to do it quote unquote well. And I say that obviously like quote unquote because it means different things for different people. Bernie Sanders is very different at the internet and he's crushing it compared to AOC. You know, like it's not a question of like, oh, I have to do exactly what this person's doing. Jeff Jackson from North Carolina found a completely novel and fascinating way to approach the internet and grew one of the most powerful lists and biggest TikTok channels in politics. And he did it completely different than anybody else in politics before him. And it completely feels real to him and genuine, and like he is his own person on the internet, and he built a huge following doing it. You know, the goal here is not to say I like this politician, I need to replace what I need to replicate what they're doing. The goal is to figure out how to bring yourself online. And I can tell you story after story about candidates that I've worked with, especially, which we'll get to, especially those who are investing in meta ads, meta being Facebook and Instagram. It is wild, the power of Facebook ads to help people recognize you on the doors. When you go knocking on doors, the ability to spend a little bit of money on Facebook ads and be known when you show up is wild. I still never get over it, and I still love it every time a candidate tells me, we've been running ads for a week and people recognize me on the doors. And I'm like, that's what it's all about. And hell yeah, keep it going.
Yeah, without spoiling too much on that, like I'm such a huge door knocking guy. Like one of the things that I often tell candidates is if I had to choose just one thing for you to do, it would be to knock every door in your district at least once, right? And that is something that only the candidate and only the candidate's volunteers on the ground can do. But if I could do two things, I think I would probably run digital ads and try to target them so they're in those neighborhoods a week before I go to knock those doors. Like that such a powerful 1-2 punch, and it's almost like the air cover for the ground game that you're able able to have. And you know, you
I'm a
mentioned.
big advocate. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say you mentioned the impact that those Facebook ads, those meta ads can have, and I know that like one of the hardest parts of running those ads is just getting approved,
Mhm.
right? And all the rules change, and so we're going to get into some of that. We're going to talk about how to overcome those difficulties in a little bit. But do you have anything to add before we kind of get into social media strategies?
Yeah, so just I'm agreeing with you completely. I am a huge advocate that if it's a winnable race, which not every race is winnable. I've lived, I've worked in maps that were, the district skewed so heavily in one direction, it is what it is. But if it's a winnable seat, I am a firm believer that the person who knocks the most doors and runs the most Facebook ads will win the campaign. Assuming, it's a winnable seat. It is wild how much, especially in these down ballot races, if you can like build real relationships with people, it doesn't matter what they're saying about you in the attack ads. It doesn't matter what like the other, whatever is doing. You run those ads to get them to open the doors. You show up at the doors and you talk to them. It is wild. And again, I make no guarantees, but that is my experience. I have seen a lot of candidates run that playbook to really successful outcomes. So big advocate for that.
Awesome. Well, I'm in total agreement on that. I thought it is one of the most powerful 1-2 punches, especially at
Mm-hmm.
the local level. And the cost of running those ads is a lot lower than
So
people
low.
expect it to be.
Yep.
We'll get into that, but like let's talk through social media kind of broadly. What platforms do you think deliver the most impact for local candidates who have those limited resources? Obviously, we're bullish on Meta and Facebook. Talk about how to use those, but also, are there other platforms that people should be keeping their ears out for?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I hate Meta as a company. I do not think that they are like have the public interest that good. That said, you cannot run for office without being on Facebook. Like for better or for worse, like there is no path to running like a successful campaign, in my opinion, without being on Facebook because so many of the people that are voting, that is their primary platform. So you absolutely can be on other platforms by all means, but like you have to be on Facebook because that's just there's so many people there. So where else should you be depends on you, the candidate. Like I said, like Jeff Jackson doing his TikTok thing is maybe replicatable for you, maybe not. Although we should talk about TikTok because I think there's real opportunities for campaigns on TikTok. Like I've managed to build a very strong local audience as a non-candidate, just as like a guy with a cell phone on TikTok myself. But I think, it's harder. I open by saying it's messier. It's harder to know. The short answer is 2 years ago, there was 3 platforms you needed to be on, maybe 4. Now there's like 10, and nobody can be on all those unless you have a full-time digital team. Like even some of the big campaigns are not on all of them. So, it's a fool's errand to try to be like you will fail trying to be on all of them. So my advice to you is pick 1 or 3 and like really figure out how to make those work for you. One of the good news is that short form video performs well on all of them. They're all competing with each other to be the most important for short form video. So literally you could be on Blue Sky, you could be on Twitter, you could be on Substack, you could be on, obviously TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. Short form video works in all of those places. And you should absolutely be like considering that as part of your strategy. So like, as far as like, and you can absolutely cross-post content. What you can't do is just set your content up and forget about it. Like if you're not like checking the comments and replying to the people, you're actually doing yourself a disservice for down ballot races. It's very different if you're running for governor or senate or something like that. But for down ballot races, you should be engaging with the comments and like talking to folks, which I imagine we'll get to at some point.
Yeah, and just for folks, the answer is sort of right in the name itself on short form video content. Can you give just an example of what that looks like in the context of a candidate campaign?
Short form content.
You mentioned the short form content that the candidate does on TikTok. He does a lot of explainer type videos, straight to camera, where he's explaining exactly the details of the legislation. He walks through his day of life as a lawmaker, and that's a good example of that type of short form content. But for the folks who are in kind of like campaign mode, what is like some of the most common short form video content that they might consider producing on those?
Yeah, absolutely. So short form video, it can be literally anything, but things you can consider, of course, like explainers, if you want to be the like educator in chief, that's fine. And that's good. Like Jeff Jackson's done really well with that. That's kind of what I do. Like I just take the story of the day and I share it. But I worked with a candidate who crushed it on digital. And she would just tell stories from the doors. Like she would go knock doors and then like if somebody wanted to be on camera, great, but often they don't. But that's okay. Like you can, if they tell you a story about their life, like that's yours. And obviously protect their, privacy and don't like share their name or their address. But like that story is yours to share. Like I just met a woman who's struggling because, Medicaid got cut and like she can't take her kid to the doctor and like it was really overwhelming. And like it doesn't have to be academic. You don't need to be like reading research reports to have impactful social media. Like you have to talk to people and share their stories. And I say this a lot, and I imagine I'll say it a couple more times today. The biggest mistake candidates make when running for office is they try to be a superhero instead of a megaphone. You are not a superhero. Nobody, I always say this, nobody cares about you. They care about themselves. And it's your job to figure out how to make it seem like you care about them. And part of how you do that is literally reflect back their concerns, their struggles, their frustrations, because people are frustrated. They are concerned. They are upset. And like, if you're talking to folks and not sharing those stories, you're missing a huge opportunity to like show people. Here's the good news is my guess is anyone on this call running for office is already doing the work. What you're not doing is sharing the stories day to day. And there's a line I use all the time on every campaign I work. If it didn't happen on social media, it didn't really happen. If you have an impactful conversation on the doors, if you go march in a parade, if you go and like get like meet somebody with a dog, like tell that story. Like there's stories to tell. You don't have to like show the dog to tell the story about meeting the woman and the dog and whatnot.
If an influencer falls in the forest, they probably tripped over a lighting rig, right?
Right.
So when it comes to content creation and management, a lot of our candidates, they have limited staff. A lot of people are their own campaign manager. What do you think is a realistic posting schedule and content creation schedule for our candidates? Maybe have one or two people helping out, but are largely doing this on their own. What would you recommend to them as a bare minimum?
Yeah, so my recommendation would be 3 to 5 posts a week minimum. And something else to keep in mind, batch your content. Like you don't have to batch everything. Some things happen in the moment. You knocked on a door or somebody told you a story and literally this one woman, she would like sit in her car and tell these stories. And she was in a very rural area. And so she was like spending a ton of time in her car knocking doors. And so in between she would just like hop out and, pull out her phone. But like set time in your calendar 1, 2, 3 days a week to say, okay, I'm going to create a couple pieces of content. I'm going to check on my engagement. I'm going to like talk to people. You need to be doing it regularly. And like, let's be honest, you don't have 20 hours a week, much less a day to be doing this, but like set time aside. Twice a week for half an hour, it should be on your calendar to work on social. I'll tell you, when I work with campaigns, especially down ballot races, where I'm managing social for them, I'm not sending them a post a day. That's a huge pain in their ass. Like they don't want a post a day. What they want is a batch of social. And so what I do is I create weekly batches for them that they can approve. Once it's approved, I schedule it out. And then if things happen, of course, we can add to it. We can move things. If like, God forbid, there's like a tragedy or something and we need to like push social for the day, we can do that on a dime. But like, we're not creating posts. I'm not thinking about creating a social post for every candidate every day. If I was, I would be failing, just like you will be failing. You can't think about it that way. You've got too much on your plate. So instead, decide that every Monday and every Thursday from 12 to 12:30 or 8 a.m. to 8:30 or whatever, that's going to be the time where you sit down and you write a couple social posts, schedule them out. You could schedule them right through Facebook. I use a tool, I'll drop it in the chat, called Publer that I love. I use it all the time. I have a blog post like breaking down like how to use it and why I use it, but also like how to use it. It's called Publer, but for Hootsuite, there's tons of those tools. Have a process. Like you have to have a process or it won't work, but you also like have to be willing to like live in the moment. Sometimes you're out and like somebody tells you a story. Don't like wait 2 days because it's not your social time. Pull out your phone and talk. Like there's benefit to that, but like you gotta keep yourself moving forward every day. And if it's constantly on your mind, you're gonna struggle. And I'm a big Vonnegut fan for the record.
So we have a couple of questions that popped up in the chat here. I think you kind of got around some of the best tools for scheduling and managing this piece. But Mary had asked, do you think having content on Spotify or other listening resources play a role now? And I think like really this boils down to does doing podcast appearances and that sort of thing. That almost crosses line with digital and earned media to me.
Sure.
Well, what do you think, especially for local candidates, at what point do you think getting into that type of content is worthwhile versus a waste of time?
So I would differentiate, and it sounds to me, Mary, like you're saying, like, should you have your own podcast? And unless you already have it, the answer is no, in my opinion. Like, that is not a good use of your time. Going on other people's podcasts, depending on who it is, can absolutely be a good use of your time. So like, there's absolutely opportunities to talk to local folks. Like, I'd rather be on like if you're running in a small race, school board, city council, I'd rather be on a local podcast than a national one. You know, like you want to talk to real people who actually might vote for you, and there's opportunities. But like, don't be like Gavin Newsom and think you need to have your own podcast to run for office. That is misreading the takeaway from the 2024 campaign. I know like the Democratic Party is in a disarray right now because like they lost this election and they think, oh, podcasts are the answer. And their solution is we all need our own podcast, which is why Andy Bashir and Gavin and all these people are starting podcasts. That is not what they need. What they need to do is find audiences that already exist and talk to them. That is a very hard thing to do as a down ballot candidate. If you can do it, do it. If not, focus on social media. That is a better use of your time, and you will see better, like engagement, in my opinion, than in trying to like have your own podcast. That said, if you've already got a podcast, or if you're just like really want to have a podcast, I have 2 podcasts. I love podcasts. I just don't want anybody walking away saying, Josh said I need a podcast, because that is not true.
Yeah, and Susan makes a good point too. They do a lot of ads, YouTube ads, and a lot of podcasts do ads as well. Like, does it make sense to look into running ads on podcasts about your campaign?
Sure, you can. I mean, the thing is, a lot of the platforms don't accept political ads. But yeah, I mean, YouTube ads for sure. The problem of YouTube ads is you need video content that's quality enough to put on YouTube, which a lot of down ballot campaigns don't have. But you absolutely should be running ads. A lot of, depending on the podcast, like if you're trying to like advertise with like a small local podcast, they're probably not running that through a platform, and you're going to have to reach out to them directly, and there's a good chance they're not going to be interested in political advertising. A lot of folks are uncomfortable with it. So I'm not saying no. I'm also saying that's not part of my strategy when I work races.
Yeah. So to veer us back towards social media, I want to talk about building an audience and building out engagement. Do you have any strategies that work best for building that initial social media following as a candidate?
Super hard. To start at 0 and have to build to 1 is always the hardest thing. The best advice I have is start today. And I don't care if you're running for office or not, start today. If you're running for office right now and you haven't started, you're late. If you're not planning on running for 2 years and you haven't started, you're late. Like, it's always the right time to start, and you do not need to be out there ostentatiously like, pitching yourself, but like start building something. And I tell this to folks all the time. Like, if you think you're going to run for office down the road, but you have not yet like launched, start doing what you can to become known as an expert in like 1 or 2 topics. Like, let the world know that you are the person to talk to, because you know what? Especially down ballot races like city council, school board, things like that, you don't need to be an expert on everything. You need to be an expert on one thing and then be able to talk pseudo intelligently on other things. But like, you don't need to be like an expert on foreign policy and, like things like that. Like, nobody cares about that when you're running for city council. What they care about is like, do you know what's going on locally? And if you can show that you are the person to talk to when it comes to like one specific issue, that is surprisingly transferable, in my opinion, to like be known as a person who's a serious person who can be like looked to for other things as well. So my advice to you would be find a channel you're comfortable on, or for whatever, and start as soon as you can, and just start posting content. And again, you're not running for office. Nobody's paying it, unless you are, but like nobody's paying attention right now. But like, when they're going to be paying attention, you need to not have 1 follower and 3 blue skies or 5 tweets to your name. Like, you need to show that like you didn't just get into this yesterday, because people don't, the earlier you start, the easier it is, because it's hard as hell whenever you start. Give yourself more time. So like, literally, if you're thinking about running for office at any point in the next couple years and you haven't started social channels, I would start them today. Don't wait.
And how can candidates measure to see if that social media effort is translating into real campaign benefits?
I mean, it's a funny problem, because like at the end of the day, you don't know if it's working until you win or lose an election, right? But you can get a sense of like, are you moving the needle? Are more people connecting with you? Are more people checking out your page? Are more people clicking your links? And like Publer has this, I think it might be a paid version as opposed to a free version. But you can actually track your competitors. So I can like go on Facebook and say, I want to know how I'm doing and how they're doing, and I can track that in real time. super useful to know, like, oh, my page is not growing super fast, but it's growing faster than my competitors. So that's good news. And when I say competitor, I mean, obviously, if you're running in a campaign, you have literal competitors, but like it can also be just other people in the field. It could be your current city council person or, congressperson if you're just trying to keep tabs on like what they're up to. A Publer and other tools do this too, but Publer's really good at it. Lets me see like top posts by any public Facebook page. So I can literally like follow a Facebook page and then just see like filter by like which of their posts are doing the best. And then I always say like don't steal their content, but be inspired by it. If like 3 city council people in your area are all talking about an issue, well, maybe you should have an opinion on that issue. Whether or not you post about it, you should at least like know what's going on. And maybe you should go reply to it and like, weigh in, especially if you're not a candidate. That might be a little aggressive, but if you're not a candidate, you're just a citizen, you absolutely can go and like talk directly to those folks. So again, you have a lot of benefits pre-candidacy. And then you have a lot of benefits post-candidacy too. Like, or, like once you become a candidate, people like following campaigns online. Like I have found that like the same content seems to do better when you're officially running for office than when you're not. Like there's just something about politics and social media that go well together.
Yeah. What are some pitfalls and mistakes that you see first-time candidates make when it comes to social media? What are
Yeah.
some of the things that our folks should really try to avoid doing?
So we've talked about them already, but I'll reiterate them because I think they're huge. One is they don't post enough. Like they post once and think, oh, or they assume that everybody saw every post. Nobody saw every post, and very few people saw any post. Like it's very noisy. And if you put a thing out in the world and somebody asks you a question, you're like, well, I posted on social. Like they don't know, and that's not their fault. Like it is a noisy world, and it is your job to keep posting. It's okay to like post the same thing, so long, don't use the exact same language, but like share the same thought. I liken social media to a river, a raging river these days. It's constantly moving. And if you are looking backwards, you are drowning, like you just need to keep looking forward, keep like moving forward with it, keep putting content out. The other big mistake that folks make is that they ignore the comments. Now, again, if you're running for governor or senator, you should ignore the comments. We could actually have an interesting conversation about that. But if you're running down ballot and you're not responding to the comments, you are telling people that you are not going to be a good public servant. Whether that's your intention or not, those people want somebody who's going to take their phone call when they have a problem. And like for better or for worse, that's what it means to be a city councilor. That's what it means to be on school board. And if you're not responding to their comments on Facebook, they remember. I promise you, they remember whether or not you do. So check that stuff, respond to it. And then the other big thing, which I talked about earlier, but like, again, worth reiterating, you're not a superhero. You're not wearing a cape. You're a voice of the people. Like pick up a megaphone, speak for the community. Don't speak as like the savior of the community. Nobody thinks you're going to save them. Nobody cares about you except maybe your parents. Like you care about you. They care about themselves. Find a way to make the campaign relevant to them, not relevant to you. You will do a whole lot better when you can do that.
So you talked about the importance of responding to comments, and I totally agree. Like it's just as valuable as going door to door or having an in-person interaction, because like this person took the time to reach out to you. That being said, the comments can be a scary place.
Yeah, they can.
How do you recommend handling negative comments, or when your opposition hits your social media or their supporters do? What are the best ways to deal with that on social media platforms? Because I'm sure that comes up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So don't feed the trolls, like for sure. If somebody's just full on a troll, like that's not what I'm talking about when I say engage. And with Facebook, you have several moderation options. You can hide comments. When you hide a comment, the person who wrote it and their friends still see it, so they don't know that it's gone. Like literally, you can hide comments from 2 people and they can sit and chatter with each other about how terrible you are, and all they're doing is helping your engagement because nobody else is seeing it. But like, it's there. Then you can delete comments. The downside of deleting it is they know it's gone. The upside is nobody else can ever see it. But you might get an angry phone call or message. That happens. People get upset, and then you can ban people. I would do that very reluctantly, but I have done it here and there. I mean, very reluctantly. Usually it's if somebody's truly across the line. So the most important thing I can say on this, because there's no right answer here, dealing with the trolls, like to be on the internet is to encounter trolls. The best thing I can say is differentiate between troll and a critic or an unhappy person, or, like there are, like I usually say, like, like somebody who's frustrated with you or with something. Somebody might say something very frustrated, but like, you might be able to win that person over. You're going to knock doors of people who don't like you or don't like politics. And like, you can win those people over if you're kind and like honest and like tell them, like have an honest discussion. I'm very active on TikTok and I reply to everybody, trolls, whatever. Like I engage, I mix it up. And I've had people tell me, they're like, I don't agree with anything about your politics, but I'd vote for you if you ran for office, because they like that I treat them civilly. And like, it's wild how much you can change somebody's entire worldview by simply being a nice person when they're not being a nice person. So I'm not telling you to like, don't go looking for trolls. Like, that's not a good use of your time. But not every negative comment should be written off. Like, and part of the job is figuring out like which are the ones that are a huge waste of your time and which are the ones where like this person's actually talking about a real thing and like I have an actual opinion about it, so let's chat. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's kind of the best I got after a long time of doing this.
I think that's a great answer. And
Okay,
while we're
cool.
talking about the importance of responding to the chat and to responding to comments, I want to take some questions from the comments because we have some really good ones in there. First of all, I really love this question. This comes from GABA. They ask, what are some digital campaign tactics that have helped underdog candidates close the visibility gap quickly?
Short form video. It's like in this day and age, I mean, 3 years ago, I would have had a different answer. I would have, okay. The thing about social is it's complicated and it keeps changing. 3 years ago, if you had engaged me to help with digital, I would have been like, Facebook Live. You got to go Facebook Live. That is the path forward. And it was true then. It's not true anymore. It's just not. Like now it's short form video. And like in 2 years, it might be completely different. So like there is no one rule. There is no one solution. What there is like an ever evolving set of tools that like, unfortunately, we need to keep up with, which is why I'm always thrilled to like come talk to folks like y'all, because a huge part of my job is keeping up with this stuff. But if you want to close the digital gap quickly, short form video is your best bet. Like there's nothing else that's going to break through the algorithm like faster. And then obviously like money, like putting money behind it. Even you'd be amazed how little money it takes on Facebook to make a massive difference for your account if you're doing it correctly. And I know Rob talked about this and we could talk about it a lot more. The complications of Facebook advertising. It is a very complicated platform. I do it all the time and I still struggle with it regularly. Like we all do. Anybody who runs Facebook ads for a living is constantly having to relearn how to navigate their like elaborate, ridiculous, ever-changing system. But at the end of the day, like if you're not running Facebook ads, you're barely on Facebook. Unless you already have a big following, like you're just not going to break through. The algorithm doesn't want to show your page to anybody. And Facebook ads, it's wild how little money you have to spend to make a huge difference. That's my experience.
So a question from Corey, and Corey, we're also going to talk about this when my colleague Justin does a little bit of a product demo because we provide the voter file to our Good Party Pro candidates. But Josh, what best practice do you recommend for connecting your social media or your ad strategy to the voter file to make sure that you're targeting the same voters that you're reaching through other avenues like your mail program or your door knocking program or even your text messaging program?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I just want to say I just saw Gaba, sorry, your comment, and the fact that you're running against an incumbent from 1994, that sounds like an opportunity to me. Like that is something you should be leaning into hard. Like everybody's ready for a change. Like it doesn't matter age, it matters like people want new. Like everybody's frustrated. So I didn't see your question until just now. So like that is not an impediment. That is an opportunity in my personal
opinion. I very quickly start thinking things that are terribly out of date from 1994 and running a short form video campaign where you feature some of those things. And then,
do an ad on roller skates and talk about how this was popular when my incumbent was first elected. And then like play it old school Nintendo and like, show food, like, oh my gosh, like connect it. Like it's not about age. It's about he's been in DC or wherever this is for too long. It's time for a change and like literally show the types of things. I love that idea, Rob. Like take things that were like popular then, like do a thing with MC Hammer, in the background and talk about how like this is what was on the radio when my opponent was first elected to office. Shoot, remind me your second question. I got all excited about that.
So the question,
the
was about
file,
how to use voter
okay.
file for ads. Yeah.
So with Meta, with Facebook ads, if you've got access to the vote, I work a lot of campaigns. Some have access, some do not. Like it's expensive, and some people just they don't have it. Good Party helps folks with that, right? With the voter file, so that's less of an issue. So here's the deal: for those, does everybody? I'll assume people have like some understanding, but essentially the voter file is like you can say, I want to just talk to people who voted in the last 3 elections, or only voted in spring elections, or whatever. So you can take that list and you can feed it to Facebook. It's called a custom audience. So let's say you have 10,000 people. You can download that list as a CSV file, upload it to Facebook. That's the good news. The bad news is your match rate's going to be terrible, like maybe 50%. It used to be like, I would say it was like 50 to 70, and now it's like 30 to 50. You just never know. So I will tell you this, every time I run ads for a candidate, no matter how big or small a campaign, if they have access to the voter file, I run it, but I never put 100% of my budget towards it, no matter how small their budget is. I still always put 50% of their budget to a wider audience, and then I watch the two and I see. Now, Facebook, they're such jerks, man. They used to tell you what your match rate was when you fed your custom file in there. So if you put an audience list in there with 10,000 people, they would say we match 6,700 of them. Now they won't tell you. You got to start running ads to figure it out. Like, there's just no reason. They know, like there's no reason. So essentially, I put in a 10,000 person list. Facebook only matched 4,000 of them, totally normal. That means best case scenario, I'm talking to 40% of my audience. Best case. So I would rather take half my budget. And again, I will, adjust as needed. Facebook ads is iterative as hell. But I would rather take half my budget and feed it to a much broader audience to make sure I'm getting the other 60% of the people. And there are those in my industry that would tell you that's a waste of money, and those people lose like elections. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, you're not talking to 60% of your audience. You're not going to win the way you think you are. I would rather quote unquote waste money talking to a wider electorate than narrow it so much that like, again, if it was 100% match rate, sure, like spend all your money. It's never going to be 100% match rate. Facebook either can't find them, they're not on Facebook or Instagram, like they use a different email address and Facebook can't identify them. Like, you're never going to get that 100% match rate. So if you're only spending to the voter file, you're missing a huge opportunity to talk to the larger audience. So what I do is, depending on the size of the budget, what I'll typically do is start at like a 50-50 budget if the budget's not too big, 50-50, and then I'll watch and see, okay, my voter file is at 3,500. We're talking to them plenty. Let's switch this to a 40-60. Sometimes it winds up 20-80. It just depends. So I would just like move money out into that broader targeting. So hopefully that's helpful, but like that's how I approach that.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to move us from social media into talking about email campaign strategies now. I do see some really good questions about Facebook ads, and I'll come back to those because we're going to do email, and then we're going to talk about digital advertising to kind of close us out. If I don't manage to come back to these really great questions, just ask them again at that point. But I think that they're really solid questions that I want to make sure that we address. But as far as email campaign strategies, building a list is super important, right? And what are some of the effective methods that candidates, especially first-time candidates, can use to build that initial email list? This is work that usually starts before you formally declare. But for anyone who's trying to scramble up a list, Josh, what's just words of wisdom?
So a lot of campaigns take everybody in their Gmail and they export it into a list, and that can be good and it can be very bad depending on who's in your Gmail. So I would never just like blanket export everyone you've ever met. Some of those people are going to actively be working against you. Some of those people you haven't talked to in 20 years, and they're going to be offended that suddenly you're in their inbox asking them for money. Like, you need to be careful with that. I've seen really bad things happen. So it's okay to like take the people that, essentially, put it this way. You shouldn't be emailing anybody who doesn't want to hear from you. A, because they're not going to like you and it's going to be a problem. And B, because it's actually going to hurt your deliverability to everybody else. A lot of folks don't understand how this works. It's universal rates, not individual. So if you, let's say you have an email list of 1,000 people and 700 of those people, let's say 500 people of those 1,000 are Gmail users. If 10 people on your list are Gmail users and mark you as spam, Google is less likely to let you through the inbox of those other 490 people next time. They take you as a unit. So everybody in Gmail who marks you as spam hurts your deliverability for everybody else in Gmail. You do not want Gmail deciding you're a spammer because it's going to make it impossible to get through. And that's true of AOL and Hotmail and Yahoo. So you do not want the biggest list possible. You do want a big list, but you don't want the biggest list possible, because the biggest list possible is going to wind up getting you in spam filters. So one of my favorite piece of advice I give to campaigns when you're running for office, if you're out knocking doors, collect email addresses on the doors. Anybody who says that they're interested in the campaign, ask them for their email address, ask them for permission. Like, we're not spamming anybody. I send out email updates. I want to keep you posted, let you know about like upcoming, deadlines and things like that. can I add you to my email list? If they're already excited about your campaign, of course they're going to say yes, or most likely. Other things you can do, you can run ads. There's like petition ads and thank you ads. And I've gone back and forth on whether or not those work. I'm seeing tremendous success right now. People are engaged. I'm working with a nonprofit in the care space, and we are seeing stupid numbers on these petition ads where we're, I agree, I think that we shouldn't do this or whatever like that. I don't really think y'all should be doing that, but like that is a thing you can do. There are tools out there like Civic Shout is a platform that enables you to essentially like run petitions within their platform that get people to opt into your list. And they're trying to break this like fever dream we're all living in where everybody's getting spammed all the time. So Civic Shout is a really cool platform that makes it really easy to like set up a petition based on something that you care about and ask them to like to email, to like opt into your email list. And then anytime you're at an event, if you're hosting it, especially, like it's a huge missed opportunity if you're hosting an event and not asking people to join your list. So like think about the people that already want to hear from you, that are already talking to you. Those are the people that should be on the list, but like make sure you're doing it in a way that's not going to like hurt you in the long run.
Awesome. And
I will also say you can very easily buy email
about
address too, but like they're problematic, like it's problematic. Yeah. So sorry, it's just like worth mentioning. It is very easy to buy email lists today. That doesn't mean it's a good idea. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, usually the first thing someone asks if you buy them and you send them something is, where did you get my email? Mm-hmm. Right? It's the same.
People don't want to hear from you
when you buy phone numbers from people. What makes an effective campaign email that people actually open and read? You talked about how things get marked for spam and how that can hurt you. If you've got a good email list, what should you be doing in, even the subject line, for example, to give your email a better chance of being opened?
Add value. First and foremost, you have to add value to the list. The reason why I was legitimately excited to get an email from Jeff Jackson every single time he sent one is because every email was fascinating. He was giving me a behind the scenes view of what was happening in Congress that literally nobody else could give me. Like no journalist, nobody was giving me that access. Now, Jeff Jackson was in a unique position. He was in Congress and he had the ability to do this, but like you can add value. I just today, like 3 hours ago, gave a session with the Center for Digital Strategy at their email summit called You're Writing Your Emails Wrong. And I talked about this very topic for like an hour. So like I could nerd out on this hard, but the short answer is I like to use the example. Who are you more likely to open an email from? A friend constantly asking for help, or a friend constantly telling you about the cool things that they're out like in the world seeing? And like, if that latter friend asks you for help, you're probably going to do it because like, oh, they're always like talking to me and whatever, like they're sharing stuff. But if they're constantly asking for help, you're just not even going to answer. So subject lines are other than sender, the very first thing that's going to get somebody to decide whether to open your email or not is your subject line. So think about your subject line. David Ogilvy, he was like the master copywriter admin. He said that 80% of your ads budget should go into your into your headline, because 80%, like that's how far most people get. So 80 cents of every dollar you spend on your ads should be focused on your headline. And like, that's your subject line. So like, are you paying attention to your subject line, or are you just saying like, hey, quick note, or today's date, or this month's newsletter? I am a huge email nerd, like huge. Like I read political emails, I write about political emails, I read digital marketing newsletters, and like all kinds of things. If you Google my name, Josh Clemens, and digital marketing newsletters, you'll find a blog post I wrote where I literally round up 25 to 30 digital marketing newsletters I read religiously. Like I could talk about email forever. But the biggest takeaway from all of them, and again, this is not political, so like, but it does connect. Every single one of them add value to my inbox. It's not that they don't have links. I absolutely can click through and learn more. But there are a whole lot of email programs that are just trying to get me to their blog or just trying to get me to their whatever. I'm not going to open those. Like I'm in my inbox right now. Talk to me in my inbox. And I think email programs can learn a lot from that. Like tell a story. And I think AOC and regardless of politics, like whatever you think of, like whatever political, check out her email program, subscribe to it. She sends phenomenal emails. They sound like they were written by her, even though they obviously weren't. They're beautiful. They're well formatted. They tell a story, and she raises gobs of money through it. Now, again, it's very hard to replicate AOC or Jeff Jackson or somebody like that. But even like Donald Trump, like if you go look at his email program, I think he runs a lot. We could talk a lot about like he uses a lot of very bad tactics. He's like a spammer. He sends on average 10 emails a day. Like it's wild how often he emails. Like I track this stuff. But his emails, big space between paragraphs, like really easy to read, graphic in every single one. He never sends an email that doesn't have a graphic, huge buttons with huge call to action. One other big important piece is you should base every email should have a single call to action. If you're asking people to do many things, you're asking them to do no things. So build your whole email around a single ask. And then if you want, if you have to, use a PS for a second ask. So like I'll do that. It's called like Al Franken sort of like invented that. Like it like he got kind of known for it. Like every email he sent would be like, okay, here's my PS ask now. Like it became like a joke. But every email should be based around an ask. So if you're asking for money, you can't also be asking for volunteers. And I highly recommend that if you're telling somebody a story, don't put a link to the story right at the top, because then what you're asking them to do is go read the story. You tell them what matters from the story, and then at the bottom be like, by the way, want to check out the story, here it is. Like it's fine to like again, we're not trying to be spammers here, like tell people like where, you know, cite your info. But if your first thing is all based around that link, then that's all that you're doing with that email, nothing else. And I think that's a big mistake down ballot candidates especially make, is like, hey, check out this article from the local paper, by the way, can you kick in $10? Like you already lost them, like they moved on. You know, like so like tell them what they should learn, put a photo, things like that. Make your email skimmable, readable, make it sound like it was written by a real person. I'm just throwing out all my many pieces of advice on email to this question.
On the call to action piece, do you, like you mentioned having that at the end, are you someone who, I know there are a couple different schools of thought on this. Are you someone who likes to have the CTA kind of multiple times in an email, or are you, it's where the buck stops at the end?
It depends on my client. Like I work with a lot of programs, and some have lists that like appreciate it, but generally speaking, it's good to have an ask above the fold and another at the bottom. Like that's sort of the like basic, you know, 101. You can evolve with that as you go. Like if you find like that's awkward for you, but generally speaking, you want to have an ask high up and an ask down at the bottom, and it should be the same ask. And then if you need a second ask, that's your PS.
Awesome. So email has a lot of different purposes, and you've kind of alluded to this. You can use it for fundraising. You can use it to recruit volunteers. You can use it even to sort of educate voters about upcoming events or even your policy platform, right? How should emails differ for different campaign purposes? You know, are there formatting or best practices that apply to one form of outreach but not another?
No, I don't. I mean, format, again, like, so first of all, and just in case this isn't clear, you should never have two columns in an email, because 55% plus of people will read it on a smartphone and it will not look good. So like, as far as formatting, I actually like when people talk about like, I need email templates, I'm usually like, no, you don't. Like, that's just, keep it simple, like lots of white space, like a photo is great, like, or graphics, but like, don't spend too much time formatting your emails, because that's actually taking away from the end goal. I think the biggest thing, and correct me if this is not your question, but especially with down ballot races, and like, let's say you're using MailChimp for constant contact or something like that. MailChimp makes it really easy to have more than one audience. So within your account, you can have more than one audience, and each audience has a firewall between it. You literally cannot send an email from one audience to the other. Like you have to like rebuild it from scratch. And the place where I think about that being relevant is press. So I would have one audience that's everybody, and in a second that's press. You don't want to accidentally send press your like that. You should have a different strategy for. But honestly, with most down ballot races, like there's only so much, like it's a small list, you're busy. I wouldn't think too much about that. I mean, you should send emails, you should tell stories, you should ask for money, but like there's only so much you're going to be doing anyway. So like focus really on writing good emails, less about segmenting. If you've got a list of 1,500 people, there's only so much segmenting you can do, short of like sending emails to donors versus non or something like that.
Awesome. As far as email scheduling goes, you know, for let's say state level legislative races to city council races, that's sort of the average size of most of the people running.
Say it again. State council,
what? State ledges down to city council.
Got it.
What do you think the optimal email cadence is that's, you know, gets supporters engaged without overwhelming them?
I would recommend 3 to 5 a month, maybe a little bit less if it's like way before, you know, like, and it depends. There's no one size fits all for any of this. I've worked hundreds of campaigns and I approach them all differently, because some folks have tiny lists and it would be ridiculous to send 5 emails a month. And some folks have huge lists and only sending 3 emails a month would be ridiculous too. So, but 3 to 5 a month is, I think, a good way to think about it. It's like a little less or a little more than one a week. And it could be even like slightly less than that. And then it would be more as you get closer to the like election days and things like that. You know, if you're like a year out, like maybe 3 a month is plenty, maybe even 2. But then as you get closer, you know, ramp that up to 4 or 5, and then close, you know, then it could be 2 a week. You know, it's like, it depends. But there's no like one size fits all because every list is different. But I think if you're just like looking for a number, 3 to 5 a month.
Awesome. In the prep for this, I had sort of bounced a question off of you asking about the role of automation. And you mentioned that you're not a big automation person when it comes to scheduling these emails and, you know, trying to maintain personal connection. Can you talk a little bit about why automation can actually be a bit of a pitfall on email? But also, like, where are the places for setting things up, like scheduling these emails?
Sure. So to clarify, I do schedule tons of stuff. I schedule tons of social media posts and emails. I don't like automation because it takes the humanity out of it. And anytime you're removing humanity from it, you're losing. That's my opinion. We live in a world full of slop. AI garbage is taking over the internet. The moment I think you sent me an email that was not written by you, but was written by an AI chatbot, I am unsubscribing from your list. Like, it should, I'd rather see typos, not a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't like fill them up, but I'd rather see typos than something that looks like it was written by, like, you know, Jasper. I mean, Jasper's fine for certain things, but like, I want to read something from a human, especially for a down ballot race where part of the job is that for better or for worse, I want to feel like I know you, right? Like, it's a huge problem in politics. We've like set up, we elect people in the worst possible way in this country. Like, let's just be honest about it. Like, we have these crazy expectations for these jobs that don't pay enough. I mean, most of these jobs don't pay enough. There's so much work. And you know, it's like amazing. Like, I've had so many friends who run for public office because they believe in it, and I have so much respect for them. It's a hard job though. And like, the more you remove yourself from it, the more people are not going to feel connected to you, the harder it's going to be for you to do it. And I just worry, like, automation as a word makes me nervous because there's a lot of things you can automate that will make you sound less human. That said, I mentioned earlier, when it comes to social, I do a weekly batch for tons of clients, and then I schedule out for the week. With emails, you know, I have a client, she has a event next week, and we had like a final series of emails. I scheduled those out like 3 days ago. Like, I have no you know, like, they were scheduled out 10 days in advance of the event. Like, I have no problem with scheduling, but I'm doing it as a human. I am proofreading it. I am reviewing it. I am making sure it looks perfect. One of the many reasons why I love Publer, many reasons, and again, go back to my blog post on it because I walk you through how to do it. I have a video and everything. It lets you optimize by account. So I can take one piece of content, make it perfect, and then hit optimize. Like, there's like a little button, like literally optimize. And then I can tag the person correctly in Facebook versus Instagram versus Twitter. And I can turn the tweet into a tweet thread so that it's not going over. And I can add a link in bio for free right through Instagram. So it's like, I can literally make the post perfect for every platform. I write the post once, get it perfect, and then I go through and I optimize it by account. Like, it's the opposite of automation. Automation would be post it on Facebook, automatically share it on Instagram. Well, you got a broken tag and the link didn't work and like it looks bad, like you messed up the formatting, like you've removed the humanity from it. Like, so we live in a world where everybody is like looking for, you know, like human connection, and in office they want to feel like you have a higher threshold for what people will accept from you. So that's my 2 cents on automation.
One more time, what was that tool Lindsay?
Oh yeah, it's called Publer. I'll just drop my my blog post here again. Just like I said, like, because I like literally I wrote out 10 reasons I use it, and I describe how to do it. I even have some like Loom style videos for a couple of them, so like feel free to check that out. But it's a free tool. Limited. Did that post? Oh no, that's wait. It's a free tool for like a couple platforms, and then if you want to add additional ones, it costs like, you know, a couple bucks a month. You have to pay for Twitter because Twitter's API is ridiculous. So they used to do free Twitter accounts, now they don't. But you could put, I think, up to 3 accounts in there completely for free, and then if you want to do more, you can pay. So big fan. I use it like literally every day. I love Publer.
So I have one more email question, and then I'm
Sure.
going to take us into digital advertising. If you asked a digital, like a Facebook ads question before, feel free to put that in the chat again. I'll make sure we get to the. But the last question on email is, how should candidates segment their email lists for more effective communication?
So the most important thing you could do with segmenting for a small race is like weed out folks who are not opening your emails, because the easiest way to get through is to like exclude folks who don't open. And then the other main place that I would be focused on would be donors versus non. Like you might want to send different emails, but honestly, if your list is like 500 people or 300 people, like the more time you're spending on segmenting, the less time you're spending on sending emails. So like I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's not a bad idea to clean your list up every now and then. And then the only other group that I would definitely take out is press, if you're going to do press. And I see Suzanne asked about a separate email. I would not have a separate email address, but I would like have a separate audience within MailChimp. Like it wouldn't just be a tag; it would be a completely separate audience so that there's no overlap. And then like if you're sending press releases, you're not accidentally sending those to your list who are going to hate that. And even the press don't like press releases, but like I get it. You got to send press releases to get press. So I would have a separate audience there.
Mm-hmm. So I want to dive into digital advertising, and it's sort of kind of trickled in throughout because it is so important. We had a lot of questions in the chat about budget and for planning for this. So I did want to ask, in terms of candidates, again, thinking through from city council all the way up to state legislative races, what is sort of the minimum amount that they should allocate towards digital advertising? And can you talk a little bit about how the pricing structure typically works for these ads?
Yeah. So I asked Facebook once, a Facebook rep, how much they recommended, because everybody always asks, like, how much should I spend? And there's no right answer. It's like, how much should you spend on a house? How much should you spend on a car? Like, the more you spend, the more you get. But I asked a Facebook rep once, and for a state Senate race, they recommended $600,000. And I just laughed and I said, thank you for your time. And I hung up, and that was that. Like, it's a joke, here's the thing. I have spent close to $1 million on a race, and I have spent $1,000 on a race, or even less. I've worked I have this one candidate I work with. She was running for mayor in a town of 5,000 people. I think her entire ad budget was like $200, but we moved the needle. Like $200 can go a long way. So this is a very broad overview. Obviously, every campaign is going to be different depending on the size of your audience, your content, all this. But generally speaking, it's a helpful metric. You're going to get a penny a view. Again, it could be 4x that or 4 times that, just depending on like the quality of your content and how busy it is. Like you're going to spend more in November than you are in August because more people are advertising. It's all an auction. But a penny a view means that for every $10 you spend, you're going to get 1,000 impressions. So you can literally do some math and say, okay, here's how many people I want to talk to. But again, you can't just use the voter file. So you got to go broad. So I have literally like managed ad budgets for $500 to $1,000 and $500,000 in Meta. There's no right answer, but the more you spend, the more you'll get. So my recommendation is start small because, like you don't have all the money in the world. But if you're seeing success, spend more. I work with a lot of campaigns that are uncomfortable with the big budgets, but like they start knocking doors and getting recognized on the doors. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I just got another $100, put it into Facebook ads, like literally. And I actually have a blog post. Again, I'm a huge content guy. Google my name and 3 rules for down ballot candidates. I wrote a blog post about this. And it's specifically about digital ads. And I tell a story on there and I'll share that here. I think it's relevant. So one of the first races I ever worked, I was the digital director and senior staff on a governor's race in Rhode Island. And we had 30 staff and like 25 of them were field staff. They were out knocking doors every day. And we were spending millions of dollars on TV. And I was pretty green in politics. And I asked our campaign manager, I said, is this like, do TV ads win elections? And he said, hell no. TV ads don't win elections. What TV ads do is they get people to open the doors when you knock. And years later, I realized I could replicate that exact strategy with Facebook ads for 1% of the budget. Instead of spending $1 million on TV, not even 1%, like 0.1%, I could spend just a couple $1,000s. Thank you, Aaron, for finding that so quickly. And I told the story, an example. So I have a candidate that I still work with. I've worked with him for years, but he was in a very hard 4-way primary. Like he was not the front runner when he got into the race. There was like another guy in the race that seemed like, had a better path. But this guy was just a machine. He knocked 15,000 doors, like just a machine. But the thing is, Wisconsin had very gerrymandered maps, and his district went from like his neighborhood where he was on county board and people knew him, all the way out into this very rural area where he had literally never met anybody. And he was knocking doors in these rural areas and opening the doors, and people were not only saying, "I know you," they were saying, "I'm voting for you." And it was 100% based on Facebook ads. He'd be the first to tell you that because that's the only way anybody knew him. And he won that race, a four-way race. He got 48% of the vote in a four-way primary because people just knew. And granted, I told you, he knocked the most doors by like a factor of 10. I mean, it was like stupid how many doors he knocked, but he also ran the most Facebook ads. And like he was going into the communities where he'd never been. And people were, I'm telling you, they were opening the door and not just saying, "Oh yeah, I've heard of you." They were saying, "I'm voting for you." And so like my point is he started small, like, you know, we were doing maybe $50 a day for a state assembly seat. So that's like pretty small, but the more success he saw, the more he kept saying like, "Okay, just raise more money, up the budget." And literally every single day I was going in and like adding money. So like it's an important distinction because if you've never run meta ads or digital ads in general, it can be hard to understand. Let's say you want to take out a TV ad or radio ad or a billboard ad. You say, they tell you it's going to be $1,000. You're paying that $1,000 no matter what happens, right? Like, you know, you own a business, you put up $1,000 billboard, nobody calls, they're not giving your money back. That's it. That's not true with Facebook. With Facebook, you could say, "I want to spend $1,000 over the next month." And after 3 days, you're like, "Oh, these results are terrible." You can turn it off. You're not guaranteeing to spend that $1,000. All you're guaranteeing to is spend whatever you've already spent. So if you've only spent $50, you have not committed to spending 1,000. You're just saying, "I want to spend 1,000," but after $50, you can say, "Oh, this is terrible," and you can turn it off. So if you're finding that your cost per view is way more than a penny a view, like maybe you want to look at that again. The other big mistake folks make is that they pick the wrong optimization. So like they send people to their website. It's really expensive to send people to your website, and there's no reason to do so. Unless you have a really good reason to send people to your website, you are much better off running engagement and or reach campaigns than traffic campaigns. Traffic campaigns will cost far more to do far less. Like you're not going to win this race because somebody went to your website. You're going to win this race because somebody feels like they know you. And I'd much rather have 7 or 8 touch points right in Facebook where they never left Facebook, and it costs a fraction of the cost than sending somebody to your website. If you've got like an amazing website you want to show off, fine. But like I worry a lot of down ballot candidates, and most down ballot candidate websites are not that good, and that's fine. Like you got to have one, but like they're not award winning. And then they go and spend all this money to send people to it. I'm like, why? Just talk to them right where they are, and where they are is Facebook, and that's where you should be talking to them. So run reach ads and or engagement ads, and keep your costs as low as possible to get as much as possible to talk to folks.
Yeah, it's kind of like the equivalent of into someone's door and asking them if they can come down the street to talk to you about your campaign. You got them right there at the door. Why not talk to them about it, right? You mentioned, you know, some of these really great metrics for being able to decide will you increase or decrease your spending. You mentioned sort of the baseline penny of view. I also wanted to ask about ad spending and how to distribute it across different platforms. Like Facebook is obviously huge, but we had a question from Lauren who asked, do Google Ads play a role in your ad mix? And if so, what percentage? In general, how do you diversify that digital strategy across different platforms?
So, and Kimberly, I see your questions. We will answer those too. Let me answer this one first, but I saw you ask at least one of those more than once, so I'll make sure we get to it. I differ from a lot of my colleagues here. I truly believe in the power of Meta to win elections. And so unless a candidate is spending enough to like make it to where like we can diversify, I typically won't leave Meta. A lot of my colleagues disagree with me on that. But like, I don't know, it keeps working for me. I keep winning elections. Like, I don't know. So I keep doing it. But I do know I have a lot of colleagues that think it's very important to have search ads. I think search ads depend. So search is like somebody goes on Google and searches. If you build a website with like halfway decent SEO and it's showing up, like it's less relevant, but like there is value there if you want to spend like a little bit of money on Google ads. The main other place to spend money on Google would be YouTube, but like that only works if you have a good video. And usually if you got a good video, like the budget's going to be higher unless you're like a videographer. Like, you know, it's harder. Essentially, video is harder, so it's like winds up being a lot more expensive, and then you're trying to compete on YouTube, which is very challenging. I've run a ton of YouTube ads, and like they can be great, but like at the end of the day, you're spending a lot less to do a lot more on Meta. So I personally go there. That said, I have run ads everywhere: Hulu, Peacock, you know, display, programmatic, you know, all over. If your budget's there, cool. But if you're talking about $1,000 to $1,500 a month, or even like $2,000 a month, I personally would put it all into Meta unless you really think there's a problem with Google. And I know like being an independent, like third party, like super complicates things for y'all. So there might be a reason to like put a little bit of money into Google search ads to make sure that like when somebody searches for the district or whatnot, that like your name comes up, because like you don't have the benefit of a party system to support you to make sure it comes up. So there might be a value to that, but I would take that on a case by case basis personally.
We have a question from both Kimberly and Gina that are really similar about what type of Facebook page is best for being able to create a campaign ad. Can you do it from your personal Facebook page? Do you have to have a specific Facebook page for your campaign? Meta verification. What are some of the basic parameters for that?
So this is an easy answer. I know a lot of people prefer personal accounts, and personal accounts probably break through not probably, they do break through the algorithm better. But at the end of the day, you are extremely limited if you're not using like a public page as opposed to a personal account. You cannot run ads from a personal account, and you don't get those analytics from a personal account. So if you're trying to run, if you want to run ads, you have to have a public page. Like that's an easy answer. Like you can't do it from your personal account. You have to have a public page. Instagram's different because they're all flat. All you have to do is convert your personal page into a business page, and then you can run ads. But Meta or Facebook, if you want to run ads, you have to have a campaign page. So I know a lot of folks have like huge personal followings and like 3 followers on their page. The easiest thing to do there is just keep sharing your campaign page like to your personal. Don't do every post, like that's spammy, but you know, like every couple posts, share it to your personal account, and then like remind your personal people like, hey, you know, I've got this campaign page, head over there. But again, once you start spending money, you're going to be reaching people regardless, and you can't spend money on a personal. Josh Clemens Facebook page, I cannot spend money. But like my campaign page, I can't. So like it's an easy answer. Like you have to have a campaign page for most stuff. So that's where you should be like optimizing. But like I'm not saying you shouldn't also use your personal account, but you're going to hit like severe limitations.
Okay, I'm going to give Josh just a moment to breathe as
I don't need it. I can go forever, man. But y'all go ahead.
Questions. Quinn, you can go ahead and drop the poll. We always want to get feedback on how these trainings are going. Josh has been great with his time. I think this has been a lot of fun, and we're going to go for another 15 to 20 minutes on this. But please let us know, are you getting value from this? This helps us to fine tune the type of programming we're going to have for you again in the future. This is super helpful. And while folks are filling that out, I'd love, Josh, for you to talk a little bit about the different formats for ads that perform the best for these types of campaigns. Should people be running video, static images, carousel images? How do these types of ads differ? And what do you tend to recommend to folks?
So I am a huge advocate of A/B testing. So taking a bunch of things all at once and letting them run all at the same time under the same budget and letting Facebook decide what works. So the good news is you don't have to worry about what's the best. You just have to get a bunch of things running all at the same time. And then what I'll typically do is I'll just keep adding new content into the mix all the time. Over the years, carousels used to do really well, and now I find they don't. I haven't tested them again recently, but generally I've actually found carousels on Facebook especially to do quite poorly. And weirdly,
Can you also define carousel?
Sure. When you have like numerous images that you swipe through. So interestingly, you cannot put money behind an Instagram carousel. Like you can build it, but you can't like put money behind it, like boost it. But short form video can do very well. Photos can do very well. Sometimes graphics. Over the years, I have found that like not great. Like the more it looks like a magazine, the less it's going to do well. Like the goal is not to look as, it's not that you shouldn't look professional, but like the content that looks really fancy, I have found almost always underperforms the stuff that looks like not that good. Because think about it from like the user perspective. They want to see their friends on Facebook. The second it looks like a car commercial, they're swiping as fast as they can. So if you look like a car commercial, don't spend all your money to look like a car commercial because nobody wants to see that anyway. Like you're much better off having 10 posts of you, like doing interesting things and whatnot, than like putting all of your money into like one really glitzy graphic or whatnot. And again, if you're a graphic designer, like there are opportunities for cool graphics. I've seen great graphics break through, but like better graphics do not necessarily like equate better success in social. That is my experience for sure. So yeah, short form video, photos, and graphics for sure. But like, again, there's a difference between like a fun graphic and like something that looks so professional that like, it could be a car commercial.
So we have some good questions about A/B testing. First of all, can you define A/B testing and also talk about how to do it with a limited budget? It is pretty
Yeah.
important, and it's actually one of the best parts of digital advertising is there's a huge opportunity for it.
Yeah, and I talk about this in that blog post if folks want to go back to it. So essentially, A/B testing is literally telling Facebook. So like what most people do is they take one ad, right? Like whatever it is, whether you build it or you boost it or whatever, they take an ad and then they put money behind it and tell Facebook, here's $100, here's $1,000, whatever, spend money. You're not giving Facebook the opportunity to figure out what's working. What I do is, and I want to clarify, I do quote unquote boost posts. Like I hate that term because it's like so complicated. But 100% of the ads I build are in the ads manager. 100%. I never hit boost posts on Facebook. That is a great way to waste your money. 100% of the ads I build are in like the ads manager. So what I do is I will build a campaign and then within that an ad set. And then within that, I'll have numerous pieces of content. And those numerous pieces of content are all sharing one budget. So I might have 5 pieces of content all under a $10 a day budget. And I'm telling Facebook, you decide which of these works. And the beauty is you don't have to have a big budget to do this. In fact, having a small budget is fine because you can, you just need $1 a day per thing you're testing. So if you're only spending $5 a day, you can't have 20 pieces of content. But if you're doing $5 a day, you can have 5 pieces of content and let Facebook figure out of those 5 which works best. And you will be amazed. Sometimes it's not what you expect at all. Facebook will you can see on a granular level which things Facebook is actually putting money in. So let's say you take 5 pieces of content and you say, here's $10 a day to like put into these 5 pieces. You can go look, it's not spending $2 a day per piece of content. It's going to wind up spending $9.50 for one, 40 cents for another, 10 cents for the third, and 0 for the other 2. It will like decide which of your content is the best. And that's good because that means you're getting the most bang for your buck. And what I will typically do is go through and just add in new content to that mix constantly. So like a lot of times, especially on down ballot races, I'll just keep putting good content out into the world. And then if the good content that does well organically is better content for paid. If a post bombs organically, like, I mean, it's hard if you've got like no reach, so it's hard to say like what bombs or did well, but the better a post does organically, the better it'll do paid. It's not magic. Like ads, putting money behind something's not magic. It's simply saying this post that did well will do way better if you put money behind it. So what I will do is I'll have those 5 posts running, and then in 3 days, I'll go and I'll add 2 more in and maybe remove a couple. And then 2 days later, I'll add in another one and take out, like, so I just keep putting in new stuff so that it's constantly, what you want is that every time somebody logs onto a Meta platform, they see a new piece of content from you. And again, when I said that 3 digital rules, one of them is like, don't just have one ad. Like I see that all the time. I've seen congressional candidates do this, have like one ad that they run for months. And I'm like, dude, talk about misunderstanding the Meta platform. There's a huge opportunity to make it feel like you're everywhere. And literally it's called the mirror exposure effect. The more you are like, see something, the more you assume everybody's seeing it, the more you assume it matters. You can create the mirror exposure effect with $10 a day, especially in a down ballot race, by simply having a lot of content. But if it's the same post over and over, people tune it out. But if you got new stuff all the time and it's interesting and like cool, like great, people see it. And again, when I say it wins races, like I genuinely believe it.
Awesome. So last question on social media for now, and it's about targeting for local races. What are some of the targeting parameters that work best? And also, because I'm a big fan of it, can you talk a little bit about geo-targeting strategies? And by geo-targeting strategies, an example, I really like to be able to target with digital ads, the neighborhoods or the wards that I'm going to be doing door knocking in about a week in advance. That way people have heard of me by the time that I'm going and I'm knocking on the doors. And you can do that. I've even done non-campaign work, rather non-candidate work, where we were doing legislative lobbying. And if I knew that there was an elected official who had a vote, I would run targeted ads basically around where I knew that that person lived. So they saw that there were people who really cared about whatever issue it was that we were putting in front of them. So anyways, Josh, can you talk about how to set the targets for these ads? And then also specifically, I would love to have you talk a little bit about geo-targeting. Then we'll get into talking about the tools a little bit, and we'll close with the final round of Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing, the good news and the bad news is that it's harder and harder to target. So it used to be you could target just progressives, or like they literally said, like just It used to be able to target very liberal, liberal, moderate, conservative, very conservative. They got rid of that. They used to be able to target Democrats, Republicans, Independents. They got rid of that. You can't even target fans of the New York Times or Fox News. Like, they got rid of anything remotely related to political targeting, which sucks. But this also makes it easier for you. You don't have to think about it. And at the end of the day, like, so until last cycle, I was excluding fans. Like, so I work mostly Democratic campaigns and progressive campaigns, although I have worked some very prominent independent races. As Rob knows, I ran digital for Dan Osborne in Nebraska last cycle. But if I wanted to exclude like MAGA folks when I'm talking like for Democrats, I would exclude fans of Ted Nugent and Kid Rock. You can't even do that anymore. Like, you can't even exclude people anymore. Every cycle, they make it harder and harder to target. But the good news is Facebook still knows all that stuff, and they keep getting better and better at like knowing who you want to talk to and sending your ads there. So there's no guarantee. You might wind up like on the wrong side of the aisle, like with a bunch of like very left or very right people like yelling at you. But generally speaking, if you use the language of the people you want to talk to, Facebook is getting pretty good at understanding who you want to talk to. And they're no longer letting you tell them who to show it to, but you can do it. So like if you're talking about like LGBTQ rights or kids rights or whatever, like, you know, public education, they are pretty good at finding the people that are interested in the topics you're talking about. So like there is a benefit there. As far as geo-targeting, so I mentioned earlier, what I typically do, especially for like a down ballot race, is I will target, you know, if they have the voter file, I'll do part to the voter file and part to the whole district. I'll like literally draw the district out with little pins, because like unless it's congressional or higher, you can't target by district. But then I will get creative, to, like you said, Rob. So like one thing, like that candidate I talked about earlier who had the very rural area that like he wasn't known in, we were spending money just in that area. We spent everywhere, like money was going everywhere. And then we were just targeting that neighborhood. And I've actually done this where we just dropped a pin on top of our opponent's house and targeted within a 2-mile radius or a 1-mile radius. Not to troll them, but because their neighbors know them well, we want them to know us too. And so taking even just a couple dollars a day and saying, okay, you could drop a pin on an address and say, I want to do a 1-mile radius. You could do from a 1-mile radius all the way to statewide. So we would drop a pin on there. We don't always do this. This is not always a thing. But if our opponent is like on local, you know, a local elected official and like has a big sway, and these aren't attack ads, but we want to raise our profile in their neighborhood to try to eat away at that support. Like by default, we're not going to get any support in their neighborhood, or maybe we can, you know, and that's the idea. So, yeah, Rob, I've definitely done what you were talking about, like doing a week in advance, but honestly, it's like so hard sometimes to like break through anyway. A lot of times I just go wide and just do the whole district all the time. But if it's a big enough budget and or a big enough audience, I absolutely would consider, like, it's all about size of budget and audience. Like, so there's no right answer here. But if you're like, you know, you're going to be going to this like town next week to canvas, get those ads up and running ASAP and make sure people recognize you when they open the door. But you know, if you're dealing with like a $10 a day budget, you know, I would just go to everybody and just try to raise your name ID everywhere. And I will say, because people get, you know, like struggle with this, there's going to be bleed outside the district. Like you can't say I only want to target this, but like they have friends and, you know, whatever, like it is what it is. Like I'd rather bleed out of the district than be so conservative that nobody, like that I'm missing 20% of the district. So like better to bleed out than to like not bleed, you know, like cover the whole thing. That's kind of my take. There's no right answer here. Like I've been doing this a long time. I evolve my process all the time. Like this is the best I got right now. Invite me back in a year. I might have whole new advice because this world changes constantly, like constantly.
Awesome. Well, at this point, I want to introduce a member of our product team who's going to walk you through a couple of tools that you can use to put some of Josh's really good advice into action. We have tools around, of course, the voter files, so you can do this type of targeting that's been described here. We have AI tools to help generate some content as a really good first draft. I'd echo what Josh said, though, about make sure that you do the human rewrite of this stuff. It provides a good, as I say, first draft, but it's so important to be authentic in this type of communication. But Justin Hanson, if we can have you come off of mute, introduce yourself, and go ahead and share your screen.
Hey, everybody. I'm a product designer here. Let me get my screen shared for you. So what I'm going to do first is just kind of walk you through what we currently have. And we just released last week a new version of the dashboard at goodparty.org. So it's all kind of task-based so that within the 8 weeks leading up to your election day, we've created tasks specifically for each of those weeks to kind of help guide you in your outreach strategies. And every single week we have something here to encourage you to post to social media. This is supposed to be a thought provoker, something to get the juices rolling, to encourage you to go down that road. I do need to be pretty blunt and say we don't have a ton of social media features, especially when it comes to posting and creating ads. But we are looking, one of the next projects we're looking at is to build in that kind of functionality within the platform. So this has been super useful for me to hear more about what Josh has to say from his experience and his expertise. And I'd love to hear some more in the comments from you guys about what you'd like to see in terms of how we can better help you create better posts, target people in ads. So once you see a task here, you can, this one is, what do we got? This is just a few days before election day. So we're in the get out the vote phase, right? So we want to encourage you to post to social media, reminding people to get out the vote. So you can click on write a post. And then here you can either use a saved script that you've created in the generate scripts area. You can generate a new script using a prompt that we've used, and AI will help you generate. And listening to Josh too, I think that there's some room for us to adapt in the future to think about how we can better use AI to not just kind of hand you something that doesn't sound like a human, but give you those ideas like a starting point so that you can really craft an amazing message, but do it in a way
I was
that
not critiquing y'all, for the
voice.
record. I was not critiquing
No.
anybody.
No, I think this is in general a critique of AI, right?
Okay,
Like
fair.
it does a good job of generating ideas, but it doesn't do a good job of, like you said, of sounding human.
Right.
Of making people realize that, hey, this is Josh on the other line, right? This is not just a robot telling me some random stuff. And we have the ability here so that you can write your own script just from scratch, right? So if I just put this in, currently we don't have, how many? There we go. Currently, we don't have the ability to tie into any social media platforms. That's something that we're looking into. I think Facebook will be kind of the first one to see if we can work with any kind of API. From what I understand, it's pretty difficult to, but we give you the ability to just copy that script so that you can go into Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, or X and paste that directly there. So that's one way that you can do it, is seeing that task pop up each and every week in your election cycle. Another way that you can do that is through the content builder. So if you come over to the content builder, we have these ways for you to generate scripts. This is all AI generated stuff. So in social media, we have a few kind of prompts guiding you here. In the future, we envision the product kind of getting rid of this content builder here and doing everything in a specific flow or that you're working in that moment. But we'll see how we explore with that. So I can create a social media when I launch my social media. I can do something that posts some information about my event calendars in case I want people to come out and meet me where I am at. And it operates just the exact same way as I showed you on the dashboard. Another way is to go into the AI assistant and just start having a conversation with the AI assistant, right? Let's say that I listened to this, this talk with Josh, and I forget everything he said. I can come in here and I can start to ask what are the best strategies, social media strategies to get people to vote for me, right? So now I can just have a conversation with the AI assistant. It's going to question and prompt a very vast catalog of resources that we have specifically towards campaigning, and try and help guide you in whatever you're trying to ask. You can also ask it to write you posts, like let's see what it said. To increase voter support, focus on the following social media strategies. Share engaging content, highlighting a stance. Okay, cool. Help me write a Facebook book post, and then I'll just paste that in there, highlighting a stance on key issues. In my profile, I can already set up some of my key issues, so we're pulling information from there. Let's see here. So you're independent candidate for school board District 5 in Brevard County. I'm committed, so it can help you start to write stuff. I can prompt it to tune it up, or I can just copy it and I can move it into social media platform, into Facebook, and then I can edit it there further to try and create my tone and voice. I'll put the typos in there, as Josh said, so people can realize that it's a human on the other side. Use the local language. I'm from Minnesota. I live in Florida currently, but if I was running in Minnesota, I'd use a lot of you betches, right? I'd really talk in the way that I would when I'm out and about. And AI isn't going to quite catch that. I could say, write it in the way a Minnesotan would. Let's just see what it says. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it does. So that's a way too where I can try and think around the box and say, okay, can you help me humanize it towards the way that I speak a little bit? Obviously, I'll still want to come in and edit it quite a bit because even though I speak like this, don't you know, I'm probably not going to write a post saying, don't you know, in there. But I may make a short form video that does say, don't you know. So this is a great resource to come in to help you generate ideas, help you think more broadly about different strategies that you can use. Now, another way that has been kind of mentioned that we can help support you in targeting people on social media is going over to voter data. In your voter files, you will see one field for digital advertising. This is basically just a voter file that we've created to target digital ads. So you could download this straight away, and you could do what Josh had told you, is plug it into Meta. I think what he said is a great learning opportunity for me too, just realizing how Facebook operates with their targeting. Something that we're going to be looking into is to figure out how we can use kind of large language models to narrow these lists in and do kind of the scraping and the extra legwork to verify that people who are in the voter files actually have a Facebook account and actually have a page that we can direct towards. Maybe that can help increase the kind of targeting that Facebook does. Maybe it takes that 40% and bumps it up to 55% if we can do a good job there. You can also create a custom voter file if you wanted to target anything more directly. So if I'm going to go door knocking, like folks have talked about, Rob and Josh both, and let's say that I'm in the get out the vote phase, we've got some pre-selected filters here. We're going to be building on these filters and hopefully adding some geolocations as well, capabilities. Let's just say I create that voter file here. It'll take some time because my local race is like 110,000 people or something like that. So it's a big file that it's going to be generating. But then I could take that file and load it into Facebook and create an audience there and try to put a little bit of dollars towards targeting those folks as well. Those are generally the ways that we will help support you currently. I'd love to kind of open this up and talk more about, at least from Josh, if, you know, from your expertise, looking at a platform like goodparty.org, with your experience, what do you think are some ways that we can really help benefit people in their social media game, whether or not that's ads or just creating content and getting out there in front of people?
That's a good question. It's hard to say because, I mean, obviously every race is so local that it's hard. Do y'all have a way to share content with each other to get feedback from each other for things that you're excited about?
So we do have some ways. It's in the community called Circle. So that's something that has launched in the past few months. We used to be, gosh, I can't remember, Rob, what platform were we on before?
We were on Discord, and the Circle, I would say.
Yeah, we were on Discord. Yeah.
In the month that we have had it live, has already become such a wonderful, vibrant space. and one that I'm really excited for. We have courses, self-serve courses that you can take on a lot of topics, and I think that we were very interested in adding deeper courses on this digital campaigning subject, so stay tuned on that. We have a general how to run and win that goes over all 4 stages of a campaign, and we also have courses that help elected officials to serve more efficiently. Just on Tuesday, we had a roundtable with a number of elected officials giving their wisdom on how to get into office. So the easiest way to stay in touch and to interact with each other is to be in Circle itself, which I know we also are going to post in where it says GPA Live recordings. There'll be a recording of this training.
You can rewatch it at 0.75 speed.
Yeah, you can slow it down when Josh is talking and speed it up when I'm talking.
I just have so much to share, like I could go
Yeah.
forever. And on that front, I've got that, there's that link again, joshclemens.com/content. I know I mentioned this. I have 2 podcasts. One's political, one's just about digital. They're both about digital. One's political. I have that free digital tools newsletter if anybody wants to check that out. So I have a blog with tons of stuff on it. So I TikTok every day about politics. So if anybody wants to connect with me, you can find me over there.
Josh, I've got a question for the people that you've helped run their campaigns. Do you think that it would be helpful? I know you've mentioned a couple resources for social media. I don't know if other platforms out there help you create that short form video content. I guess what I'm thinking right now is that, hey, you have your phone. It's through that platform. Let's say goodparty.org helps you record yourself. You also get like the script that you've written there, so you can read it on hand, and it's kind of that first person view. Do you know of any other organizations or platforms that do something like that to help people and inspire them to create some more of those video content?
There's a lot of tools to add like transcription and like subtitles or like, closed captions, if that's what you mean. Like v.io will for free add captions to your content. Canva will too. I don't know if that's a paid part. I pay for Canva. It's well worth it. CapCut will also do it, but it's limited how many times per month you can use it. And
I guess I'm talking more on the creation side of it,
so
right?
I was
Like
gonna
if
say,
I'm
like,
creating.
Yeah, you could go to ChatGPT and like tell it about yourself and ask it for ideas. Like it doesn't have to write a script to ask, like, be like, here's my platform, here's what I'm running on. Can you help me come up with 10 ideas? And like maybe 3 of them will be like something that are worth playing with. But like I'm not anti-AI. I use AI every day. I just don't use it to create content for me because that content sounds like it's written by AI. But AI is a phenomenal editor and it's a phenomenal sounding board. Like you can download the app and literally talk to ChatGPT in your phone. Like put your headphones in and talk to it. Be like, hey, I'm trying to come up with a couple ideas for short form videos. Here's what I care about. Here's what I'm working on. Like, give me some ideas. And it will give you ideas until you hang up. Like it'll never stop. As far as the actual content creation, I mean, that's still just like pulling out your phone. There are tools that will make AI videos, but like that's not what you want. Like what you want is you on camera and whatnot. But yeah, ChatGPT can be a great sparring partner when you're trying to like come, and even you could talk it through and then it'll give you a script which you can go and like make better. I use ChatGPT for stuff like that. Not for video, but for a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if it's kind of out there just as a product idea. I'm thinking, okay, I write my scripts, I've got it on my phone, and I'm recording myself. It's not AI generated content, but it's doing both.
Like a teleprompter, I think.
Yeah, you got the teleprompter, you can read it, it's recording you.
Just script.
You've got it right on your phone.
Go.
It's in the platform.
Bigvu.
Bigvu.
BIGVU does that. Descript does some version of that, but I found it doesn't always work. But Bigvu, BIGVU, that's like their whole thing. You can also download for like $10 just like literally a teleprompter onto your phone that will make it easier to record. I know I worked with a candidate who struggled with video and then he spent $10.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, this is so easy. So yeah, there's tools like that. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. So glad I clarified.
Oh, that's great.
I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. We just hit 7:30, which is the scheduled time for this call to stop. I'm happy to hang out for a couple minutes longer. But at this point, I do want to remind everyone we have another training on a hotly requested topic, and that's campaign fundraising, and that's coming up. So Quinn dropped the RSVP link for that in the chat. We have, of course, the Circle community, which is the best way to stay in touch with everyone on this call, and also it's where we'll be posting the recap of the call. And I know there are so many more questions to be asked on this. So when you go to the recording that we post tomorrow, feel free to, in the comments, ask the questions that we didn't get to as a part of this. And I know that I will commit to going back over those and answering as many as I possibly can. And yeah, to Quinn's point, you'll get points on our leaderboard. And for folks who don't know, we did launch a new leaderboard in Circle where you can actually earn free Good Party Pro access, free rounds of texting, free rounds of robocalls, all things that we'll provide for free as a way to thank you for being so engaged with that online community. It's a wonderful space where candidates are learning from one another, and we're figuring all of this out together. We're trying to build a community and a movement of candidates who will put people over party, and who again will agree to take a majority of their fundraising from people instead of from corporations and parties. So if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, Circle is the place for that. Cool. Well, on that note, folks, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss the class. We will see you again in a couple of weeks. And thank you guys so much. This has been really lovely. Josh, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to talking with you about all of this stuff a little bit more sometimes very soon. Round of applause for
the
All right,
muted
bye, guys.
applause is fun.